Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
When we first walked through that house about 10 years ago, I had mixed feelings. The inside was perfect, exactly what we'd been searching for after months of looking. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, good bones. But then we stepped into the backyard. The previous owners had gone completely overboard with the landscaping. There was this massive water feature taking over the entire space with river rocks everywhere and this elaborate 50-foot stream that wound its way to another pond with a fountain. It must have cost them thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. To me, it looked ridiculous. The whole setup took up most of the yard and made the space feel cluttered and overdone. My spouse liked the house enough that we made an offer anyway. I figured I'd just rip out all that water feature nonsense within the first year and reclaim the backyard. Maybe put in some grass, a simple patio, make it actually usable. I was already planning it in my head during the closing. We moved in on a Saturday. By Sunday afternoon, I was out in the backyard taking measurements and making notes about what needed to go when I heard voices from the fence line. The guy from the left side called out to me, asking if I was the new neighbor. I confirmed that we'd just moved in yesterday. He introduced himself as my neighbor on that side, and then the woman from the right side chimed in to introduce herself too. They both welcomed me to the neighborhood, which seemed nice enough at first. The guy asked what I thought of the place. I said it was great and that I was really happy with it overall. But then the woman gestured at the water feature and asked if I was happy even with all of this. I started to say that it wasn't exactly my style, but I was cut off. The guy said it wasn't just not my style, it was hideous. He complained that they'd been staring at this eyesore for years. The woman jumped in to talk about the noise, saying the fountain ran constantly and asking if I knew how annoying it was trying to sleep with that thing gurgling all night. I tried to say I hadn't really noticed, but the guy interrupted again to talk about mosquitoes. He said it was standing water everywhere and a breeding ground for bugs. The woman agreed and called the previous owners inconsiderate for never asking if they minded before installing this monstrosity. I pointed out that they didn't have to ask permission for something in their own yard. The guy agreed that technically no, they didn't have to, but said it was just common courtesy. Then he started going on about spotlights the previous owners had pointed at the water that lit up his bedroom at night. The woman complained about decorative grasses that dropped seeds into their yards constantly. The guy said I should really consider taking it all out and that I'd be doing everyone a favor. I was nodding along at first because honestly, I'd already planned to remove everything, but something about the way they were going on and on started to irritate me. They weren't just making conversation, they were demanding I change my property to suit them. The woman started complaining about a pergola near the back fence, saying it totally blocked the afternoon sun from her vegetable garden. The guy said the stone pathway was too modern for the neighborhood aesthetic. Then the woman said not to even get her started on the previous owner's choice of outdoor furniture, asking who put teak in a backyard. That's when I started getting really annoyed. They weren't even talking about the water feature anymore. They were just listing everything they hated about the previous owners and the property. I said that I actually really liked the pergola and the stone pathway. The guy seemed taken aback and started to backtrack, but I continued saying I thought the furniture was nice too, and we were keeping it. The woman asked if I'd surely do something about the water feature at least. I just said I had a lot to do back here and we'd see. They both stood there for a moment like they were waiting for me to say more, but I just went back to my measurements. Eventually they said their goodbyes and left. After that encounter, something shifted in me. I looked at the water feature differently. Was it overdone? Sure. Was it my style? Not really. But you know what? It was mine now. And I'd decide what to do with it on my own timeline. Not because 2 pushy neighbors wanted me to change my property for their benefit. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The water feature stayed. I actually found myself appreciating some aspects of it. The sound was kind of soothing when I was out there in the evening. The rocks had a certain charm. It wasn't practical, but it was unique. Every once in a while, I'd see one of them in their yard and they'd make some comment. The woman would remark that I still had that water feature. I'd just confirm that yes, I did. The guy would comment that it must be a lot of maintenance. I'd say it was manageable. Years passed. 3, 4, 5 years. The water feature remained. I kept it maintained, cleaned the filters, added new plants around it. My spouse thought I was crazy for keeping something I initially hated, but I explained that it had become a matter of principle. Then the pandemic hit in 2020. Everyone was stuck at home and I finally had time for big projects. I looked at that backyard and thought about what I actually wanted to do with the space. By this point, the water feature had served its purpose. It had annoyed my entitled neighbors for a decade, which brought me more satisfaction than I'd like to admit. But practically speaking, I wanted a bigger patio area, more space for our kids to play, a fire pit, things we'd actually use. So I ripped it all out. Took me weeks. Hauled away truckloads of river rocks, dismantled the pumps and filters, filled in the ponds, brought in topsoil and sod, built the patio myself, created exactly the backyard I'd originally envisioned 10 years earlier. The neighbors watched the whole process from their yards. I could see them peeking over the fence constantly. When I finished, I was out there admiring my work one evening when I heard a voice from the left side. The guy called over to say it looked good. I thanked him. The woman chimed in from her side to say it was much better than before. I just said I liked it. Then the guy said with this smug tone that they always knew I'd come around. I just gave a non-committal sound in response. And that was it. No thank you for finally removing their supposed eyesore. No acknowledgement that it had taken 10 years. Just a smug attitude like they'd won something. The thing is, they hadn't won anything. I didn't change my backyard for them. I changed it for me when I was ready, because I wanted to. Their opinions on the matter were, and always, had been completely irrelevant. I fired up my new fire pit that night and enjoyed my new backyard space, finally customized exactly how I wanted it, on my timeline, for my reasons. I've been taking my daughter into the city since she was tiny. It's our thing, you know? Most weekends we'd hop on the train and spend the day exploring New York. She's 12 now, and over the years she's learned how it works. We walk a lot, we carry our own stuff, we stay together, and we have fun. It's not complicated. When she got old enough to bring friends, I made sure everyone knew what they were signing up for. I'd call the parents beforehand and lay it all out. We're going to walk, sometimes for 45 minutes or more, at a stretch. Bring a bag with books, games, whatever you need for the train ride because the cell signal drops in and out. Carry your own things. Stick with the group. I'm not trying to be difficult, I just want everyone to know what to expect so nobody's miserable. For her 12th birthday last weekend, my daughter wanted to do a special city trip. She wanted to take her friends to some of our favorite spots, have a nice dinner, and maybe catch a show. My mom offered to help pay for tickets and come along, which was great. My daughter invited 3 girls. 2 of them have come with us before. They know the drill. The third was a newer friend who hadn't experienced our city trips yet. I called the new girl's mother about 2 weeks before the trip. I went through everything. The walking, the train, the expectations. I specifically told her the cell signal on the train isn't great, so her daughter should bring a book or something to do. The mother said her daughter was so excited and it all sounded wonderful. My daughter also talked to the new girl at school and explained what the day would be like. The morning of the trip, we all met at the station. The new girl showed up with just her phone in her pocket, no bag, nothing. I didn't make a big deal of it, figured maybe she just didn't want to carry anything. But once we got on the train and the signal started cutting out, she got bored immediately. The other girls were chatting, playing travel games, reading. They tried to include her, but she just sat there staring at her phone, getting more and more irritated that it wasn't working. The new girl announced that this was so boring. My daughter offered to play a game together if she wanted. The new girl said no and that she was fine, but she clearly wasn't fine. She kept sighing and shifting in her seat, acting like she was being tortured. And when we got off the train in the city, before we even left the station, she asked if we could get a cab. My daughter reminded her that we walk everywhere. that she'd told her this already. The new girl complained that it was so far. I told her it really wasn't bad and that we'd stop if anyone needed a break. We started walking to our first stop, which was some shops my daughter loves. The other girls were excited, looking in windows, chatting. The new girl dragged behind us, whining every few minutes. Her feet hurt. She wanted to know if we could just take a cab. She asked how much longer it would be. She kept saying this was taking forever. I tried to be patient. I offered water, suggested we stop for a snack break. She didn't want anything, just kept complaining. After about the third time she asked for a cab, I even offered to take the subway to make things easier. That's not usually what we do, but I was trying to compromise. She asked what the subway was. I explained that it's the train that runs under the city and would get us places faster. She refused immediately, saying there was no way she was going underground. At that point, I just stopped engaging with the complaints and kept moving. My daughter looked embarrassed, and I could tell the other girls were getting annoyed too. We stopped for dinner at a place that had something for everyone: pizza, pasta, salads, you name it. We sat down and ordered, and the new girl immediately announced that she wanted to go home. I asked if she wasn't feeling well or if something hurt. She said no, she was just bored and this whole thing was boring. I pulled her aside away from the table because I didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone. I told her I needed to know if she was actually sick or if something was wrong, because if she was, we'd figure it out. But if she was just not having fun, I needed her to understand we were going to be here for a few more hours since we had tickets to a show after dinner. If she really wanted to leave, she was going to need to call her mom and have her come get her. She said fine and called her mother right there. I could hear the mother's voice getting louder through the phone. After a minute, the new girl handed me the phone. The mother demanded that I bring her daughter back right now. I said I understood she wasn't having a good time, but we had tickets to a show in 2 hours and weren't heading back until after that. If she wanted her daughter to come home sooner, she'd need to come pick her up or send someone. The mother asked if I really expected her to come all the way into the city. I told her the alternative was that her daughter could wait it out with us and we'd all go home together after the show. She said she wasn't paying for a train ticket and she wasn't driving all that way either. I told her I didn't know what to tell her. If it were an emergency, if her daughter were sick or hurt, we'd leave right now. But she was just not enjoying herself, and I couldn't ruin the birthday trip for everyone else. She hung up on me. About 20 minutes later, she called back and said the girl's father was on his way. He showed up just when we were finishing dinner, didn't say much, just collected his daughter and left. She stayed cranky and pouty the whole time, wouldn't even try to make the best of it. We went to the show and had an amazing time. My daughter and the other girls loved it, my mom had fun, and honestly I was relieved we could finally enjoy ourselves without the constant complaining. But that wasn't the end of it. The next day, I started getting texts from the other mothers. Turns out the new girl's mother had gone on this whole campaign, calling and texting everyone, saying I was irresponsible and cruel for abandoning her daughter in the city. She said I should have brought her home immediately, that I put her in danger by making her father come all that way. The other mothers shut her down fast. They told her they wouldn't have expected me to leave either unless it was a real emergency. They reminded her that I'd warned her about the walking and the expectations, and that her daughter could have stuck it out for a few more hours. Now the new girl's mother won't let her hang out with my daughter at all, which is probably for the best, honestly. But I keep wondering if I should have just left, taken her home and missed the show. My mom keeps telling me I did the right thing, and my daughters had no problem moving on, but there's this nagging feeling that maybe I should have just sucked it up. Then again, every single parent I talked to said they would have done the same thing. So I guess I'm just going to trust that I didn't do anything wrong, even though this whole situation left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm a hospitalist, which means I take care of patients once they're admitted to the hospital. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I've seen a lot. I work the day shift at a mid-sized community hospital, and most days are pretty routine. Check on patients, adjust medications, order tests, talk to families. It's not important work, and I genuinely love what I do. The thing about being a hospitalist is that you're often meeting patients and families at the worst moments of their lives. Someone's sick enough to be in the hospital, everyone's scared, and I'm the stranger walking in trying to help. I get that, I really do. That's why I always try to be patient. Even when families are frustrated or angry, they're not mad at me personally, they're mad at the situation. Or at least that's what I tell myself. So yesterday started like any other Tuesday. I had my morning coffee, got to the hospital around 7, and picked up my patient list. 15 patients total. Most were doing okay, a few were touch and go, and then there was the new admission from overnight. A man in his 70s with end-stage liver disease. The emergency room doctor's notes said he came in with confusion and severe jaundice. His daughter brought him in around 2 in the morning. I made my rounds, saved the new patient for last since I hadn't met him or his family yet. When I got to his room around 11, I knocked gently and walked in. The patient was in bed, barely responsive. His skin had that telltale yellow tinge. His breathing was labored. The monitors showed everything I expected to see with someone in liver failure. There was a woman sitting in the chair next to his bed, mid-40s maybe, dressed in workout clothes, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was on her phone scrolling through something. I introduced myself as one of the hospitalists and explained that I would be taking care of her father during his hospital stay. She looked up from her phone, gave me a once-over, and went back to scrolling. She said okay in a flat voice that told me she wasn't really interested in talking. I told her that I had reviewed his chart and the emergency room notes, and I knew this was a difficult time. I asked if she could tell me a bit more about what had been going on with her father. She sighed like I was bothering her and explained that he'd been sick for years with liver problems. She said he was fine yesterday morning, but by evening he was confused and couldn't stand upright, so she brought him to the hospital. I asked if he had been followed by a liver specialist. She said yeah, obviously, and mentioned Dr. Martinez had been seeing him for 3 years. Her tone was annoyed, like I should have already known this. I told her that was good and that I would reach out to Dr. Martinez to get more background information. I explained what I was seeing from the labs and exams. His liver disease had progressed significantly. His labs showed severe liver dysfunction, and he was showing signs of hepatic encephalopathy, which was causing the confusion she'd been noticing. She told me to fix it. Just like that. 2 words. I said I understood she wanted him to get better, but unfortunately when liver disease reaches this stage, our options become limited. I started to explain that what we could do was make him comfortable and manage his symptoms. She cut me off and asked what I meant by limited options. She asked if I was a doctor or not. I confirmed that yes, I was a doctor, but liver failure at this stage was very serious. His liver had been damaged over time and had reached a point where it couldn't recover. I told her the best thing we could do right now was keep him comfortable. She asked if I was giving up on him already. Her voice was getting louder. I said I wasn't giving up, that I was being realistic about his condition. Based on his labs and his presentation, his liver was failing. I explained we could treat complications when they came up, but I needed her to understand that his prognosis was poor. She stood up and repeated the word poor like it was an insult. She said he just got here and I hadn't even tried anything yet. I said I understood this was hard to hear, I really did. But her father had been battling liver disease for years. This wasn't something that just started. His body had been declining for a long time. She said no. She said it twice. She told me I didn't get to tell her that. She said I just met him and didn't know anything about him. I admitted she was right that I just met him, but I had reviewed all his medical records, his previous hospitalizations, his lab work over the past few years. Everything pointed to end-stage liver disease. I told her I was so sorry. She asked if I was sorry. She repeated it like the word disgusted her. Then she told me to do my job. Run tests. Give him medication. Do something. I explained that we were doing something. We were giving him medications to help with the fluid buildup, managing his confusion, and monitoring him closely. But I needed her to understand that at this point we were focused on comfort care. That's when she completely lost it. She yelled about comfort care, repeating the words like they were poison. She screamed that he wasn't dying. He wasn't. She called me incompetent and said I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to calm her down and told her I understood she was upset, but I needed her to lower her voice. There were other patients on this floor who needed rest. She yelled that she didn't care about other patients. She screamed that her father was dying because of me. I said her father was dying because his liver had failed after years of disease. This wasn't something that happened overnight. That's when it happened. She lunged at me and slapped me across the face. Hard. My cheek exploded with pain and I stumbled backward, my hand flying up to my face. For a second, neither of us moved. I was in shock. She was breathing hard, her hand still raised. Then she started screaming again. She yelled that this was my fault, that I was killing him, that I was a terrible doctor and should lose my license. The nurse came running in along with a security guard who happened to be nearby. The security guard told her she needed to step back. She yelled that I was incompetent in letting her father die. The security guard told her she had just assaulted a staff member and needed to come with him. She insisted she didn't assault anyone. She claimed I had attacked her. The nurse stepped in and said she saw the whole thing through the window. She confirmed that Karen had hit me. The security guard took her by the arm. She was still screaming when they led her out of the room. Something about lawyers and lawsuits and how we'd all be sorry. My supervisor appeared within minutes. So did the hospital administrator. They took photos of my face, which was already starting to swell. They took my statement. They were furious on my behalf, which was nice, but I was still shaking. The administrator told me they were pressing charges. He explained that assault on a healthcare worker was a crime in this state, and they had zero tolerance for this kind of behavior. I said I just wanted to take care of my patients. He said he knew that, and I would continue to do so. But he made it clear that she wasn't going to get away with this. Later that afternoon, I heard she'd been arrested at the hospital. The police came, took statements from everyone who witnessed it, and took her away in handcuffs. She was still screaming about how I was the one who should be arrested. Her father passed away the next morning, peacefully from what the night shift told me. His liver had finally given out completely. I felt terrible for him. He deserved better than to spend his last hours with his daughter getting arrested for assaulting his doctor. She blamed me for something I had absolutely no control over, physically attacked me, and actually faced real problems for it. The hospital sent me home early that day. My face was swollen and bruised. I had to file a police report. The whole thing was surreal, but you know what? I'd do it all again. I'd tell her the truth about her father's condition, even knowing what would happen. Because that's my job, to be honest with families, even when the truth is painful, even when they don't want to hear it. I just wish I didn't have to get slapped in the face to do it. For the longest time, the delivery people where I live had this system down perfectly. They'd buzz my apartment, I'd let them in, and they'd leave my bags right outside my door. Super convenient. But about 2 weeks ago, something changed. Instead of bringing everything upstairs, they started dumping all the deliveries in the mail room on the first floor. I'm talking everyone's stuff, groceries, packages, everything, just piled up in there like some kind of warehouse. I asked the building manager about it, and apparently there was some incident where a delivery guy propped open the main door and someone's apartment got broken into. So now, new policy. Everything stays in the mail room, and we have to come down and get it ourselves. Kind of annoying, but I get it. Safety first and all that. So, this morning I woke up around 8. I'd stayed up late finishing a logo design for a client, so I was running on maybe 4 hours of sleep. I remembered I had a grocery delivery scheduled for early morning, which meant I needed to drag myself downstairs before someone else accidentally grabbed my stuff. It's happened before, people taking the wrong bags, because half of us order from the same store. I rolled out of bed, pulled on my favorite Ninja Turtles pajama pants, the ones with Michelangelo all over them, and threw my gray hoodie over my t-shirt. Didn't even bother looking in the mirror. I just shoved my feet into my slides and grabbed my keys and phone. The elevator in our building is slow, so I knew this was going to be a whole thing. When I got down to the lobby, I hit the elevator button and stood there, scrolling through my phone, barely awake. The mailroom is right next to the elevators, and I could see my grocery bags through the window. At least they were there. The elevator dinged, and I was about to step in when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw this young woman, probably mid-20s, dressed in workout clothes, with her hair in a perfect ponytail. She was pointing at my grocery bags and asked if those packages were for someone named Ashley. I said no, they were mine. I was genuinely confused. I thought maybe she was asking if I'd seen her packages or something, but then she kept going, complaining that I hadn't been leaving her packages at her door lately. She said I should do it next time because she was tipping very well. And that's when it hit me. She thought I was the delivery guy. I'm standing there in my Ninja Turtles pajamas and a hoodie, holding nothing but my phone and keys, and she genuinely believed I worked for some delivery company. I should have just corrected her right then. Should have said I actually lived here, but I was tired, and honestly, something about her tone rubbed me the wrong way, like she was talking down to someone she assumed was beneath her. So instead, I said maybe she needed to tip more, and I laughed. It wasn't even a mean laugh, just kind of a surprised. Did that really just happen laugh? Her face went from mildly annoyed to bright red in about 2 seconds. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She started apologizing, stammering that she thought I was someone else and she didn't mean to assume. I said it was fine, but it really wasn't fine. Not for her anyway. The elevator arrived and we both got in. I hit my floor button, she hit hers. The silence was deafening. I could feel her standing there, probably dying inside. Part of me felt a little bad. Everyone makes mistakes, right? But another part of me was thinking about how quickly she'd assumed I was delivery staff, how she'd spoken to me like I was there to serve her. The elevator climbed slowly, so slowly. I kept my eyes on the floor numbers, watching them light up one by one. She was standing as far away from me as possible in that tiny metal box. She broke the silence again, saying she really was sorry and that what she did was so rude. I said seriously it was okay and it was an honest mistake, but she insisted it wasn't okay, saying she shouldn't have just assumed. I was just picking up my groceries and she had made this whole thing weird. The elevator stopped at my floor. I grabbed my bags from between us because of course we'd both been holding our stuff this whole time, making it even more awkward. Before I stepped out, I said that for what it's worth, I had been seeing the delivery people leaving stuff in the mailroom instead of at doors. It was the new building policy after that security thing, so it wasn't that they were being lazy or anything. She said she didn't know about that, still looking embarrassed. I explained that management had sent out an email, but I knew those got buried sometimes. She nodded, still looking mortified. I stepped out and just before the doors closed, I turned back and said that Ninja Turtles pajamas were a universal sign of not currently working, and it might help her avoid this situation in the future. The doors closed before I could see her reaction, but I heard a noise that might have been a laugh or might have been a groan. When I go back to my apartment, I set my groceries on the counter and started putting things away. My phone buzzed. It was a message in the building's resident group chat. Someone was asking if anyone knew about the new policy for deliveries, saying they'd just found out packages were staying in the mailroom now. They added that it would have been nice to know before they chewed out their delivery guy that morning. It was her. Had to be. Different name in the chat, but the timing was too perfect. Someone else responded, explaining the email that went out, the security incident, all of it. Then another resident chimed in, saying they felt bad for the delivery people too until they realized they were just following the new rules. They added that we should all be more patient with them. I smiled and tossed my phone on the couch. At least she was learning something from this. About an hour later, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing there in different clothes now, regular jeans and a sweater. I opened the door. She said hi and explained she'd brought me coffee to apologize for being a complete jerk. She was holding out a coffee cup from the shop on the corner. I said she really didn't have to do that. She insisted she knew, but she wanted to. She said she'd been thinking about what I said, that I was right. She should tip more, be nicer, and not assume people's jobs based on what they're wearing, especially when they're wearing Ninja Turtles pajamas. I took the coffee and asked her which turtle was her favorite. She looked confused and asked what I meant. I explained that if she was going to apologize to someone wearing Ninja Turtles pajamas, she should at least have an answer ready. She laughed, actually laughed this time. She said Leonardo because he's the leader, right? I said that was an acceptable answer and that her apology was accepted. We stood there for a second and it was still a little awkward, but less painful than the elevator ride. She said she was in apartment 4B, adding that if I ever needed to borrow sugar or whatever neighbors do, she was around. I said I was in 3F and that I'd keep an eye out for her packages in the mail room. She smiled, gave a little wave, and headed back toward the elevator. I closed the door, looked at the coffee, and shook my head. I've worked at the library office for over 30 years. Started back when everything was still done with those old card catalogs and stamp cards. Now we've got these fancy automatic borrowing systems, and part of my job is preparing the books for them, scanning barcodes, updating records, making sure everything's in the system correctly. It's good work, quiet mostly, or at least it used to be. Let me back up a bit. I'm about a year away from retirement when this all goes down. I've been counting down the days, honestly. Not because I hate the job, I love books, always have, but because working with certain people can really wear you down over time. And by certain people, I mean one person. There's this woman in our office. I'm gonna call her Karen because, well, she fits the description perfectly. Karen's been working here for about 15 years, and in that time she's made it her personal mission to make everyone else feel incompetent. She's in her mid-60s like me, but that's where our similarities end. Karen thinks she's the smartest person in every room she walks into. It doesn't matter if it's a team meeting, the break room, or just standing by the photocopier. She's got an opinion about everything, and she's not shy about sharing it, loudly. The problem isn't that she has opinions, everyone does. The problem is that she uses those opinions as weapons. Her favorite pastime is pointing out mistakes. Not in a helpful, constructive way either. No, she broadcasts them to the entire office in this shrill, piercing voice that could probably shatter glass if she hit the right frequency. She'll shriek about someone putting the reference books in the wrong section again. She'll announce to everyone that someone forgot to update the database and how completely unacceptable it is. She'll proclaim that she can't believe nobody noticed an error until now and that she had to fix it herself. It happens every 10 minutes, give or take. Some variation of the same theme. Someone did something wrong, and Karen's here to make sure everybody knows about it. She never addresses the person directly either. That would be too professional. Instead, she announces it to the whole floor like she's a town crier in medieval times. The worst part is watching people shrink when she does it. Good people, hard workers, who genuinely care about their jobs. They make one tiny mistake, scanning a barcode twice, filing something in the wrong pile, and suddenly Karen's making them feel like they've committed some cardinal sin. Management knows about it. HR definitely knows about it. There have been complaints, so many complaints. I filed one myself about 3 years ago, though I felt guilty about it for weeks afterward. That's just how I am, I guess. Non-confrontational to a fault, as my daughter likes to say. I don't like making waves or causing trouble. I just want to come in, do my work, and go home. But nothing ever happened. Karen kept right on yelling and management kept right on ignoring it. I heard they're worried about firing her because she is part of a minority group and they're terrified of a discrimination lawsuit. Never mind that you can't just hide behind that when you're genuinely terrible at treating people with respect. A lawsuit would probably go nowhere, but I guess the fear is enough to keep her employed. So we all just dealt with it. Put our heads down, wore headphones when we could, and tried to stay off Karen's radar. Then came the team meeting about a year before I was set to retire. We had these meetings once a month. The whole team would gather in the conference room, and our team lead would go over updates, new procedures, any issues that needed addressing. Usually pretty straightforward stuff. The team lead is a nice guy, maybe 45 or so. A bit too accommodating for his own good, but he means well. This meeting was going normally at first. We discussed some changes to the cataloging system, talked about a few upcoming events the library was hosting, went over the schedule for the holiday season. Then toward the end, the team lead did what he always does. He asked if anyone had anything else they'd like to address. Karen's hand shot up immediately. Of course it did. The team lead acknowledged her and gave her the floor, and off she went. She launched into this long, rambling monologue about every little thing that had bothered her over the past month. Someone left the supply closet door open. Someone didn't refill the printer paper. Someone put their lunch in the wrong section of the fridge. On and on and on. The rest of us just sat there. We'd heard it all before. We knew better than to interrupt her because that would just make it worse. So we waited, looking at the table or our notes or the clock on the wall. Finally, she got to her big finish. She said that she was sick and tired of people not paying attention to these things. She went on to say that she shouldn't have to be the only one who cares about doing things properly around here. There was this heavy silence after she finished. The team lead opened his mouth like he was going to say something diplomatic and move on. That's usually how these things went. Karen would vent, everyone would nod politely, and we'd all go back to work. But something snapped in me that day. Maybe it was because I was so close to retirement and just didn't have it in me to bite my tongue anymore. Maybe it was the weight of 15 years of listening to her constant criticism. Maybe I just had enough coffee that morning and felt brave. Whatever it was, I leaned forward in my chair. My voice came out calm, almost monotone. I wasn't angry exactly. I was just done. I told her that I was sick and tired of her constant yelling, but she didn't see me complain, did she? The room went dead silent. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Everyone's head snapped toward me, like I just announced I was running off to join the circus. The team lead's mouth was actually hanging open a little. Karen stared at me. Her face went through about 5 different expressions in the span of 3 seconds. Shock, indignation, anger, and then something else. Something I'd never seen on her face before. She actually looked embarrassed. She didn't say another word for the rest of the meeting, just sat there with her arms crossed, looking at the table. When the meeting ended, she gathered her things and left without making eye contact with anyone. The rest of the day, she was quiet. Not completely silent, she still did her work, still talked when necessary, but that booming, judgmental voice was nowhere to be heard. No announcements about other people's mistakes, no broadcasts of incompetence. People noticed. By lunchtime, 2 different co-workers had pulled me aside to thank me. One of them actually hugged me. One co-worker told me she couldn't believe I'd said that. She mentioned that she'd wanted to say something like that for years. I responded that I probably should have said it sooner. Karen stayed quieter after that day. She still had her moments, sure. You can't completely change someone's personality overnight, but the constant, relentless criticism dialed way back. It was like she finally realized that other people had limits too. 3 months before my retirement, Karen retired herself. I heard it announced in a team meeting, and I swear the collective relief in that room was something you could feel. The team lead tried to organize a little retirement party for her, but attendance was sparse. After she left, the office felt different, lighter somehow. People smiled more, joked around more. Mistakes still happened, they always do, but nobody was terrified of making them anymore. I retired a few months later, had a nice little party, got some thoughtful gifts, gave a short speech thanking everyone. It was a good way to end a long career. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.